About 1.9 million people will be diagnosed with cancer this year in the United States. Now, cancer
study found 29 different cancers increased by about 80% in people younger than 50.
Those most likely to get early onset cancer were diagnosed with breast, lung, colon, and stomach cancer.
When life began, so did cancer.
Prehistoric, you can find signs of cancer in ancient specimens.
Around 400 BC, Hippocrates, the Greek physician known as the father of medicine, is said to have first given it a name, carcinos.
Out tumors, as they sent their fingers or fingerlings into the body, they look.
But the earliest reference to cancer can be found about 1,000 years earlier, here on this ancient Egyptian papyrus. As for treatment, it says, there is none. In fact, it's not until the arrival of anesthesia in the mid-19th century that surgery became a viable option.
Who would have thought?
As by the beginning of the 20th century, X-ray technology would give rise to the very earliest form of radiation treatment.
It was called the silent killer, a mystery wrapped in fear, confusion, and despair. For centuries, it crept into lives, claiming countless victims, while humanity remained powerless against its shadow. But cancer is no modern plague. Its story begins thousands of years ago in ancient Egypt. Around 1600 BCE, Egyptian physicians documented what might be the first recorded cases of cancer. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, an ancient medical text, described breast tumors treated with cauterization. There was no cure, only observation and despair. They couldn't explain why tumors formed, but they knew this. It was a relentless force, a shadow that consumed life as they watched helplessly. And so, cancer slipped into history, growing unnoticed, waiting for someone brave enough to name it. Want to understand more about cancer's ancient roots? Hit subscribe now to dive deeper into the past and uncover secrets that may surprise you. 4 centuries before the birth of Christ, a man named Hippocrates began piecing together the puzzle. He observed tumors and saw their claws gripping flesh like the pincers of a crab. Hippocrates called it carcinos, Greek for crab. It was the first time cancer had a name that symbolized its unrelenting grip. But naming the enemy was not enough. Treatment? Still a distant dream. The crab tightened its hold, moving silently through history. In the Dark Ages, cancer became a curse. Seen as divine punishment, it was feared, hidden, and left untreated. Physicians resorted to bloodletting and superstition. None of it worked. The silence of ignorance allowed cancer to thrive unchecked. But in this darkness, a tiny spark of knowledge was waiting to ignite. We've only just begun to understand cancer. If you're curious about its next chapter, stick around. You won't want to miss the shocking revelations coming up. In 1775, an English surgeon named Sir Percival Pott noticed something unusual. Young boys working as chimney sweeps were developing scrotal cancer at alarming rates. It was the first time cancer had a clear, identifiable cause: soot exposure. For the first time, humanity glimpsed the enemy's weakness. Cancer was not just random, it had triggers. But this revelation brought more questions than answers. What else was feeding the beast? By the 1940s, cancer had become a global menace. And then, in a quiet laboratory, Dr. Sidney Farber made a discovery that would change everything. He introduced chemotherapy, the first weapon in humanity's arsenal against cancer. Farber's chemicals shrank tumors, offering a glimmer of hope. But the treatment was brutal, often as dangerous as the disease itself. Do you believe we're on the edge of a breakthrough? Follow along as the next wave of discoveries unfold. You might just witness history in the making. For every victory, there were devastating losses. Yet the fight had truly begun. The beast was no longer untouchable. Then in 1953 came a revelation that cracked the very code of life. James Watson and Francis Crick uncovered the structure of DNA. Suddenly, cancer wasn't just a disease, it was a genetic rebellion. By the 1980s, oncogenes, the faulty genes that trigger cancer, were identified. Scientists now knew where to strike. The war on cancer was no longer fought blindly. Are we closer to the final battle? Will we ever defeat this force once and for all? But even with all this knowledge, the question remains, why does the shadow of cancer still loom over us? Despite all we've discovered, why does it continue to evade us? The fight continues, but will we ever find the cure? Click here to support ongoing cancer research, and together let's shine a light on this dark path. From Egyptian papyri to the secrets of DNA, we've unraveled much about cancer. But its story is far from over. The silent killer has become a visible enemy, yet its hold is not broken. Join the fight today. Stay informed, stay engaged. Together we can finally outsmart the shadow. The question still lingers. Will we defeat this enemy, or is cancer forever a part of our story? The fight continues. Will you be part of the solution?